We'll go ahead and get started. All right, good evening, everyone. And I want to thank you all for the invitation to be here at Oaknoll. My name is Damiano. I direct the University of Iowa Public Policy Center, and I'm also on the faculty in the College of Dentistry. I like to say I'm the only dentist in the world who runs a public policy center, and I haven't had anybody question me on that yet. And so, what I'm going to be talking to you about tonight is about the Public Policy Center and the mission, who we are, what do we do, and also this had been set up last fall when we were working on what we call the Iowa Rise Initiative. Since then, that's no longer a part of what the university wanted to do moving forward, but I wanted to just tell you a little bit about that and what we're doing to incorporate those things into the Public Policy Center, because I think it's things that you all could be kind of interested in and we sort of understand what we were trying to do with that. So at the Public Policy Center, our official mission is to provide policymakers with information to make their lives and communities thrive in sustainable ways through academic research. All right, so what does that mean? Well, obviously, we're one of the more outward-facing or engaged parts of the university, and we work with people, all policymakers of all kinds of varieties. We think of people in the legislature, but there are a lot of other people that are really in policymaking positions that we work with on a regular basis. And when we think about sustainability, often that conjures up environmental kinds of things, right? But when we think about sustainability, and in the center I'll be talking about, we have people that are doing academic research and everything, health policy, which is what I do, or people that are doing environmental policy, or people that are doing crime and justice policy, or transportation policy. And you put all those things together, and those are the things that really make our community sustainable. If you don't have adequate health care, and you don't have adequate access to health care, you're not going to have sustainable communities. You're not going to have businesses that are going to want to come in and set up shop because their employees, particularly senior management type people, aren't going to want to live there because they're going to want to have adequate access to health care. So we think about sustainable communities in a much more broad sense. And the academic research part, as you'll hear me say probably multiple times, is that our role is as traditional academic researchers. And for those of you familiar with the university, you have everything from the arts and the humanities, the social sciences, to the basic sciences, to the physical sciences, and we have people that are doing research, and the whole idea of academic research is really to create new knowledge. And so that's what we're trying to do, except we do it on more applied kinds of things and things that directly affect what's going on a daily basis, we hope, as opposed to some people that might be doing more theoretical type of research or basic science research that you may not know the value for 20 years because something that somebody came up with, some idea, is all of a sudden, well, now we sort of see how it fits, where we try to take a lot of those things and still do rigorous academic research. We're not an advocacy type center, even though we're interested in public policy. We're not trying to make policy, we're trying to inform it. And we think that's a really important role for a public university in particular, and faculty and research staff at a public university to play that role. So that's sort of when you break this down, that's how we think about it. And so the missions of the public policy are really these components. So the first is doing that academic research, and we have over 85 faculty from all across campus that have secondary appointments at the Public Policy Center. But then we need to share that information and knowledge with policymakers and the public. And so that's what we call our engagement mission. So that includes our traditional journal articles and things that we do in terms of publishing in that way and sharing information, but also reports, policy briefs, speakers, symposiums, meetings, all of those ways that we can not just be smarter ourselves because we're creating new knowledge, but we want to share that with other people. And then the third is our student success. And so we're a part of the university, and so having students involved is a really important part. And that's something that with that Iowa Rise initiative that I mentioned, but other aspects, we've really been growing the role of the center for students, both undergraduate students and graduate students, and postdocs for that matter. We have students of all levels that are affiliated with the center. And then we're really a hub for supporting social science research on campus. And in our jargon, social science, if you can think of it either by discipline or you can think of it by the type of research that we do. So in terms of discipline, it tends to be things like political science, or sociology and criminology, or journalism, some in journalism, or some in history. Those tend to be what we think of as social scientists. But there are a lot of other people who do social science research and use social science methods. So within the College of Dentistry, we have a large group of people who are doing social science health services research that fall into that, or in the College of Public Health, or the College of Medicine, or in engineering, or in psychology, or education. There are a lot of people who do social science type research that we have a social science research center that I'll talk about that helps support their ability to get grant funding, their ability to do data collection, things like that. And then we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion component that I think of as a string that runs through all of these things. And so when you think of, well, what are the biggest policy challenges, often that goes down to disparities. And so a lot of the research that I've done throughout my career has been looking at health disparities, starting way back in my graduate program at UCLA, when I was working with one of the leading experts in the country on people without health insurance coverage, the uninsured. But then that's carried forward when you think about racial ethnic disparities, or income disparities, or student veterans, or a lot of groups like that. And you look at, well, where are the policy challenges? You want to look at where the problems are. And so there's sort of a natural component of a diversity, equity, and inclusion to that, and trying to be inclusive. And that's a part of it, and when we look across campus, how we do that. Then there's also the introspective part, and how do we make ourselves sort of more thoughtful and more reflective about the challenges of being inclusive with a lot of people that we may not know where they're coming from. So the Public Policy Center is in the central administration, so we're a little bit different. We're not in a college or a department, even though my academic appointment is in the College of Dentistry. I'm very pleased and proud of that appointment. But the center is in the central administration in the Office of the Vice President for Research. So that thus we have a campus-wide mission to work with people all across campus. And that's something that I think is a really fun part of my job, quite honestly, because I get to work with people in a lot of other disciplines and a lot of areas that I wouldn't necessarily be able to do. But it's also a really important role for the center in supporting people who may not feel like maybe the support of their department may not be what they need to be able to, whether they grow personally, to grow their research, to grow their teaching. And so that's something why these faculty gravitate toward being a part of the public policy center and want to be. So with these 84, we sort of have two different groups. And these are all people that have been involved with something at the center, whether it's part of a research project or part of an engagement activity. Half of them is what we call research fellows, and those are people who want to be self-selecting into wanting to be more active, involved in things. We're working on ways of doing that. And then half were what we call affiliates, who are really there because they want some affiliation with the center and some sort of another sense of home, but not at a point in their career, or they may be a junior assistant professor, and we don't want to take up too much of their time, because then they're not going to be able to do what they need to get promoted. We want their involvement at the center to be something that's going to help their career and help their promotion, whether it's as an assistant associate or associate full professor, the ranks that we have. But it's something that's a very important, to me, extremely important part of the center, is how do we help people with their promotion. And so we've got a combination of some administrative staff that are both on sort of the operations side, like budgeting and engagement and things like that. And then we have research support staff also. And so when people are looking to get grants, how do I know where to get funding? How do I get help with the budgeting? How do I get support with the grant application, things like that? And then we have some research staff. These can be either master's level people or PhD level people. Most of them are what we call soft money funded, meaning they're on grants and contracts. And we've been very fortunate to have a good, solid, consistent grants support over the years. And so but they can provide really a continuity when you've got faculty that are coming through who are doing a combination of doing their teaching and doing their research and doing their service, where the research staff can be there consistently and really help provide sort of a backbone or fabric for that. And then our students, which are, again, that's the reason we're here as a university to begin with. And sometimes I don't think we always focus on them from a research perspective in the way that we should, and get them involved, and so that's something that's a really key part. But I think one of the things that's also unique about the Public Policy Center is that students come to the university, and particularly now, I think, but always, they come here because they want to figure out how I can make a difference in the world. Whether, it doesn't mean that they're going to cure cancer, but, in some small way, how can I make a difference? And through policy, very, very broadly defined, again, not just making laws, but they could be working for a nonprofit, they could be just working in a regular for-profit business, but how can I still contribute? That we try to provide ways to help them think about their career and life discernment in a way that they may not get in other places at the university. I'll talk a little bit about how we do that, and that's something we think is again a unique part of the Public Policy Center, but also a really important part for the University of Iowa, and also, quite honestly, for student recruitment and retention. Because why should you come to the University of Iowa? Well, you can come here, and we're going to help you figure out what you're going to do and why I'm here. Because you've got some students, and you probably know people that, they were 12 and they knew exactly what they were going to do. And then there's other ones that, they just going to do a lot of this. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And many of us, if we think back of where we are now, or where we were at the latter part of our careers, versus where we might have thought we might have been when we were 15 or 20, and it's completely different. And so you have to allow the students to have that chance to both change, think about what they're doing, make some mistakes, and grow, and how can we help to support that? And so in terms of our research mission, again, we try to conduct policy-relevant research about the challenges faced in Iowa, the nation, and the world. We do a lot of research related to the state of Iowa, but we also have people that are doing national work, and even the work that we do relative to the state. We want that to be generalizable and of value to other people. That's how we're able to publish it in journals. If it's something that's strictly a service piece for something in the state, that's not necessarily academically rigorous or something. Again, there's an important part of that we should be doing, but we also have to do things that are going to be generalizable, even if it's based on state data or something like that, to others. And then we have people that are doing international things. And so whether it's international health or it's foreign policy kinds of things, like some of our colleagues in political science, it's our research is really what I call very investigator initiated. So we don't tell anybody what research they should do, but we try to support what they're doing. All faculty come in with some sort of a sense of a program of research. And it does not work to try to tell them what to do or change. You can do that a little bit, and you can sort of nudge, but really what you want to do is try to provide an infrastructure so that faculty-initiated research can grow and also lead them to other potential collaborators and building cohorts of people to work together on things in a way that maybe they wouldn't have had otherwise. Most of our research is externally funded, and so, at the university, you hear all about how much grant funding we have and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But in my mind, it doesn't matter how much money you're bringing in if you're not doing anything with it. And that means publishing it in a way that's going to reach the audiences that you need to. And so it's really important that we have to get that funding because it costs money to do our research. It costs money to hire research staff. It costs money to be able to collect data, all of those things. But it's also really important that money isn't just for the money. The fact that the money is because we're doing something with it. And much of our research is very interdisciplinary. And so like within our health policy research program and the team of people that I work with, we'll have economists, we'll have behavioral scientists, we'll have health services researchers. We may have some particular content experts in something that we'll bring in different aspects of the study that we need. But it's in the old days, it was very valued that if you were a solo authored, you had a book. And there's still some disciplines that are like that, and you demonstrate that I did this myself. In most policy research, it's the opposite. You need to bring together all these people who can bring in different research methods, who can bring in different ideas, who can really share and grow these kinds of things if your research is really going to be more impactful and it's going to be more rigorous. And and we often work directly with government agencies. So I've done, for 30 years, I've worked with the Iowa Department of Human Services, the Medicaid program, and the Iowa Department of Public Health in particular, also with the different agencies as well. But we have people at the center that are working with, say, Department of Transportation. We have a transportation vehicle safety program, and so they do a lot of work with DOT. We have people working in the crime and justice area with the Department of Corrections. And so this is something that, again, we think as a public university, it's a really important role for us to be able to work with our sister state agencies. Often we're viewed as, sort of aloof here in Iowa City and not necessarily connected in People's Republic of Johnson County and all those things. But we think it's very important that we work through, regardless of the administration or regardless of the party, that we, they're trying to do what they need to do to get their job done, and we want to be able to help them to do that. And we've found a way to, most of the time, be able to do this service-oriented research in a rigorous academic way, so we can still publish it in our academic journals. And it takes a little bit more work to do that, and you have to publish it a couple of times, but that's, to us, very rewarding, and again, a little bit difference about the Public Policy Center than some places on campus. So these are all the different areas in which we have policy research going on. I mentioned some of those in terms of criminal justice, environment, and health. Politics and policy is sort of an area around political science. And so the person who's been heading that program, Tracy Osborne, she studies women in politics. But again, not as an advocate, but just studying, how it works and the challenges and things like that. We have a social and education policy that is very broad in terms of the people that are in there, all the way from economics to the College of Ed, transportation, vehicle safety, and the media and public opinion, which is people primarily in journalism, mass communications. There's a lot of, obviously, important policy questions, whether it's about the role of social media, let alone the whole idea of fake news and all of these kinds of things that have really important policy questions that we think are really important. Last year we had 16 different grants through the center, about $10 million in external funding. There are actually a lot more than that that's going on, but that's sort of what we consider comfortable saying is ours. We don't try to take credit for all of the research that all those 85 people are doing or anything like that. And with that engagement mission, it's really, as I was talking about, engaging and sharing knowledge to policymakers, public and academic community. Last night, for example, we had an event at the old Capitol that was around what we call Policy Challenges for Iowa and the Nation as a series, and this event was around the role for political consultants in political discourse. So while it's not a policy question itself, it's something that directly affects policy and the making of policy, and the political divide that we're all familiar with, that the country seems to be in a greater way than we have been before. And we were talking about, okay, is this their fault? So we had 4 consultants in, 2 national ones, one Republican, one Democrat, both Iowa grads, and 2 state level people, one Republican, one Democrat, who had also been elected officials at the state level. And so they were really talking about what goes on behind the scenes and how does it work and what's the role of the consultant versus the candidate. And these folks tended to be more on the moderate side of things in terms of the people they were representing. But it was a really interesting discussion, we think, not only for the community to hear, but for all the political science students. And there's 300 or 400 political science majors, and all many of them are interested in politics and be involved. So what does it really mean to be a consultant? And what's the life like? And so it was a really, I thought it was a fascinating discussion and flowed very well that Tracy Osborne had mentioned, moderated for these candidates. And so that's one aspect of our engagement. But then also, talk like when I went public radio on River to River primarily, fairly frequently, and talk about health policy issues. And that's another way that we can sort of share our expertise and help to break things down. Or we do reports for the state all the time based on our evaluations of the state Medicaid program or things that might be 200 pages to help give them data that they need to make better program decisions, but also to be able to report to the federal government, to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services for what they're doing, and then that also provides funding for our research. So it's a real win-win. So in terms of just numbers, which is what people often like to see, last year we had about 160 different publications across these different types. And these are that the faculty who are affiliated said they wanted to be acknowledged as part of the center. Even during COVID, we still had 31 events that we hosted and another 30 that we co-host. So those are things like with the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council, who some of you might be familiar with, which is a really good Tom Gown type organization. They've got a new leader right now. Catherine's really trying to get that group going. We're going to be collaborating with a specific event with them on immigration policy coming up within the next month. And then we have our Forky Rock series, and this is not just a shout out to Dory Forky Rock that's here, but her husband Dave was the person that was the founding director of the Public Policy Center, and he was the one who made the mistake of hiring me many years ago. And so we have a Forky Rock series, and that event that I was talking about last night is sort of under the umbrella of that. And these are four really our major events where we try to bring people together from different perspectives on some of the more difficult policy issues and hash it out. And that's something sometimes the universities criticize that we're, protective, that we're afraid to do that. No, we've been doing this for 15 years. We do this all the time. It's a really important thing, we believe, for both the students and for the community to be a part of this. So last night we had about 40 people in person, and we had another 160 people that were watching it online. And so it was, again, a really good discussion that we think is the role that we can. It's part of what we call our free speech series now. And so that event last night was actually in coordination with the Iowa Board of Regents and their chief of staff and the chief lobbyist of the university, as well as the College of Law and the Public Policy Center. So in terms of our student involvement, right now we've got over 800 students every year that are involved in some aspect of the Public Policy Center. That could either be taking one of our classes that are related to that career life discernment, and that's something that we've grown a lot in the last 3 years, or it might be as an undergraduate research assistant, could be as a graduate research assistant, could be as a postdoc. And one of the things we're really working on right now is trying to grow the research teams that we have to get students more involved in the basic sciences. In the lab type setting, it's really easy to involve students where you kind of have a formulaic approach where you can come in. It's not, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's still easier to bring in students and they do this. On the social science side, that's not something that has been as common. And so a lot of faculty don't quite know how to have a team of students working with them, even if they want to. And so one of the things we're trying to do is what kind of support do we need to provide to be able to help them to do that, to get more students involved, and what kind of administrative support and things like that. So the classes that we're doing, one is on an introduction to research and policy, to get students and trying to reach out to students that maybe would never have thought the research was for them. And that's part of that DEI string that I mentioned through it. So again, most people, when I came as a freshman, I wouldn't have a clue or wouldn't have thought that I was going to be doing research. That's not me. Let alone if you're a first-gen student and you're not that familiar with what it even means to be at a university. Or the student veterans that I do a lot of work with who are coming in from all kinds of life situations. Some of them might have kids, some of them might, a lot of different things. And, can we get them introduced to these concepts in a way that they might be able to be involved in research or scholarship or some other things that would then lead to their kind of a next path. And I had a student just yesterday who had reached out to me, who was a part of the summer policy research team that I had, who had been in a basic science lab, but nothing against basic scientists again. But she was headed to medical school, and that's what you see a lot of times, that the students are the pre-med, and they're the ones, they're raising their hands at the Horseshacks, and remember that TV show, and they're the ones that are going to go to all the office hours, and usually they're going to be fine, but they don't know it. But those are the ones who usually get involved in research. Well, this student ended up gravitating to the class that I'm in, and she did get to medical school, but she shifted from a basic science approach, and now she's going to do a joint medical school and public health degree. And so writing her a letter of recommendation right now for that. And so it's, again, not that it's right or wrong, but it's just sort of seeing the light turn on with these students in terms of where I might want to go with it, which is really cool. If she wanted to stay in the other, of course, that would have been great. It's nothing about that. One of the things we really pleased about are these classes here at the bottom. So Dave Gould, some of you may or may not know of him. He actually is teaching a senior college class right now for a whole bunch that maybe some of you might be watching or you're even participating in. But he's been like one of the most effective people at reaching undergrads in the whole 30 plus years that I've been here. He's now a part of the Public Policy Center, has been for the last 3 years, and he alone is reaching 600 students a year. And even in online asynchronous learning, the things and the way he's able to reach students is just incredible. And others that really, again, think about who am I and what I want to do. Terry Schutnels is teaching a class that basically is an introduction to the university, and with all these great things going on, the students have a hard time even learning about them. So that's what her class is really designed to do. And this criminology policy class is sort of a gap within the criminology curriculum that's being taught through the Public Policy Center. Ethan is a staff postdoc with us to really, again, what we try to do is look across campus and see where there are gaps that we can fill some niches that fit our mission and that other people may not be doing, because that's just not their thing. And then in terms of the social science report, we have our Social Science Research Center that we've had for about 13 years now, and they're really there to help with grant identification, submission, data collection. So if you have a funded project and you have to do telephone interviews or do mailback surveys or things like, or qualitative research, things like that. They do methods workshops, they do transcription for people that are doing qualitative research, and it has really grown into being what I think any Research One university that we like to think we are here needs. Any major university, we need to be able to support the faculty and research staff to be able to do their work. We do this at a very modest amount of cost to the university. We're trying to figure out how to make it continue to be financially viable, but it's something that we think is really important. And so if you look at what they've done last year alone, they helped submit 92 grants totaling $20 million that were submitted. We don't control in terms of what they, who gets a grant, obviously, but we do try to help to make the submission easier so more people are willing to do it, and hopefully through the process make the quality a little bit better. This year we're actually on track for about 113 grants, and I think it's $42 million that can be submitted this year. And so, as well as the methods workshops and data collection projects for lots and lots of people. So overall, again, for about the past 33 years, the Public Policy Center has been a campus-wide research center conducting and supporting faculty, students, and staff with that research engagement, which is the engagement parts for about the last 15 years since I've been the director of things we're doing. But our real role is creating new knowledge and opportunities to change the world through creating new knowledge. So through this process, and being a part of the VPR, I was asked about 5 years ago to co-chair the university's strategic plan on the work group on engagement. And so there were 4 different components of the university's strategic plan. One was on research, one was on education, one was on diversity, equity, inclusion, and one was on engagement. And so through this, we we're really taking a campus-wide approach to, first of all, what is engagement? So we view that as engaged education and engaged research. So not just things that are within the university, but what are things that are going to get engaged outside. And through that process, we really, we learned that there are some places within the university that do a pretty good job with this. But there are a lot of places that just don't have the resources, the time and energy to be able to do that. So what we were trying to do is where some of those gaps and ways that we at a strategic level could bring people together to try to figure out how we could do a better job with some of these things. So we worked with over 200 people over the first, well, really the whole time, but particularly over the first 2 years when we were trying to figure out, okay, where do we want to go with this? From both within the university and across all different kinds, but also some community partners as well. And really identify that in terms of some of the challenges is that there are a lot of students that come here, and we have one of the lower retention rates in the Big Ten after first year here. There's a lot of reasons that people sort of give for why that might be, but our feeling was if we could improve that career life discernment through the engagement and help them figure out how they can change the world, that's one of the things that we could do. And you may have heard about this demographic clip that people are talking about that's supposed to be coming up in the next 3 or 4 years, where there just aren't that many people who are coming to be college age are across the country. And so what is this going to mean for higher education? What is this going to mean for different institutions? We obviously care about what it's going to mean for the University of Iowa in terms of what do we have to do to recruit and retain students. And so when we were thinking about, okay, what do we want to try to come up with? We wanted something that was going to affect all 4 pillars of that strategic plan as I was talking about. Help create the University of Iowa as a destination university, a place that they want to come to. Improve alumni engagement. This is something that we talk a lot about, but we usually often go to alumni when they're older and we want your money. And we were trying to think, okay, how do we engage them earlier? How do we get them involved with students? How do we, and you know, it might be first year out, it could be 5 years out, it could be 30 years out. But how do we engage them more effectively and value what they can bring, you know, outside of their wallet? And that's something that we think is a huge untapped resource. And that would ultimately increase the retention, recruitment, career life discernment for the students, and support the faculty who already want to do these things. There's a lot of faculty who really would like to, but they're just overwhelmed with just trying to promote it and trying to stay up and their head above the water and all those things. But if we can provide some of these supports, then we'd be much more effective at doing that, and also indirectly improving our value to the state. We didn't want that to be primary because there's no way to do that because there is no the state and there is no, you know, the people change and all that. However, if you look at all of these things, these are the kinds of things that we believe would show well. And so when the university is trying to go to Des Moines and is trying to say, yes, we do care about what's going on in the state, these are the kinds of things that we believe would be showing our value to the state. And some of you may have seen, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, Pat Grassley, who's the Speaker of the House, when they came out and they said that the House was going to give a 0 increase to the university, and his comment was, yeah, we don't even know what we get from them, something to that extent. I'm sure there are people from the university that are going to making the case all of the time. However, there are a lot of these kinds of things that we think are self-evident and that they would get. And so that was why we were kind of moving in this direction. And then an internal baseball kind of thing, if you will, but increasing our AAU rankings and NSF grants and a lot of those things that are really important for us to be able to keep going. So this is the linear view on what this is. I'll just walk this through you very briefly, but the whole idea is at the beginning of the student coming in, this is from a student perspective, which is that ready to rise. So those classes that I was talking about with the career life discernment, the life design class, and the Explore Iowa, often these are first year, but what's also important is this really isn't linear. We found that the life design might be great for a junior who's come here and they've changed majors 4 times, and they're getting close to graduating, they still don't know. And coming back and taking Dave Gould's class in life design really helps them to think about what can I do before I finish. And then from there, this next, like the Life Design 2, which is more of a service learning class, which is preparing them to go out into the community and think about how I might want to do that, or a Summer Policy Research Institute, and how we might be able to do that, and then how that leads to then, how do we help them to figure out their majors? Because we have a lot of students who, even after their first year, are still undeclared or they change, and then add in a mentoring component. And so we're focusing right now on criminology because there's 450 criminology majors, which has grown just in the last 5 years, and the supports haven't been able to keep up. So we've hired a person who's head of the probation system for the northern half of the state and the federal side, and he is developing a pre-mentoring class for criminology majors to help them. And it goes back to some of the stuff that, again, I wish I could say this is all brilliant. This is all a duh, right? I mean, this is all just kind of common sense stuff. So they don't know what they want to do, so we take them on field trips. And I got to go on one of the field trips up to the federal courthouse last year. It was fantastic. You know, they get to meet with the federal judge, they meet with the marshals, they meet with the probation system, they meet with all of these different people. And it was fascinating just to watch the students as their, you know, things clicked. And you heard one of the students afterwards, you know, I really think that I was doing this before. Now, I'm really, you know, and that's the whole idea. And so how do we, and that's one of the things we want to try to do with alumni, is how to get the alumni in with the students at this phase so that they can be involved in helping the students. So they're interested in criminology. Well, a lot of them are because they like CSI. Okay, they don't know the difference between corrections and probation and, you know, all of these different things. So how do we inform them about that so that they can make an informed decision about where they want to go? And then they reflect on it, and we wanted to set up a system with coaches, advisors that would then tell them, hey, now that you're interested in this, these are the things that you should do so that you can finish strong. And then all throughout that is the stuff more on the bottom, which is around building research teams that the students can be a part of. Identifying what are all the research methods classes they can take if they want to really expand that. Or the service learning classes, we now have them all tagged. So when they register, if they know what a service learning class is, which is again sort of an inside baseball term, but the idea that you're going to learn by going outside, that they can then find those things, and then also be a part of different kinds of volunteer and civic engagement activities that we hope will help with student retention recruitment, faculty staff support, alumni engagement, and that idea of making us a destination university. That was sort of the whole idea of all this. Not going to go into all of this, but one of the components of this as that preparation is that we've developed what are called badging modules. And some of you might be familiar with this. Some companies are now using them. You can earn badges. Well, we had not really done that much at the University of Iowa, but we've come up with a system within ICON, for any of you who might be part of the faculty or have been. That's where the students go for their online curriculum and components. And so we've set up a system where this is one that was based on survey research, where they earn these different diamonds, if you will, to earn a badge in survey research. And then at the end, they can then demonstrate this badge on their LinkedIn page, or they can do this. But the more important thing is we found is that as the students finish these things, then they're better prepared to be a part of a research team with a faculty member. And just this week, one of our really good faculty members in the College of Education, she was telling me that she would not be able to have students right now had they not gone through our Summer Policy Research Institute, have gotten that training, earned these badges so that when they get to her, they're much easier for her to work with, and then they're able to run. I mean, they're not finished products by any means, but they're further ahead than they would have been otherwise. So this is one of those pieces that we're continuing and bringing into the Public Policy Center. And so that's their nice survey research badge that they earned. So what we're doing now, we're in the process of really trying to take the Iowa Rise initiative from pieces. The university decided in December that they were no longer interested in moving in this direction, but we thought there were still things that we saw that had a lot of value. So the career life discernment classes are something that we're still bringing in, and we've been able to figure out how to make those financially viable so we can continue doing those. The badging module development is something we're also working on. By the end of the summer, we're hoping to have 8 to 10 different badges, everything from introduction to research to survey research methods, but then also podcasting and developing websites. And so what we're really hoping, my vision for that is sort of like an app store where you go in and you're looking for your app on such and such, but then you can sort of look around, you know, and maybe the student, we send them there to take a class, and so they have to do, so we have students, for example, work in our Social Science Research Center that I mentioned, who are doing the survey research of calling. Well, they now all do the survey research badge before they start working there. So that way they've got an introduction to what they're doing, but then while they're in there doing that, oh, that's cool, there's a podcast one. And so then they start, you know, hopefully they'll start doing that. Oh, that's really cool, there's something on DEI. So then I want to do a badge on that. And then they can, you know, people like earning their merit badges. You know, we could get them a sash and but, you know, it's that same basic idea that's worked forever. And the mentoring that I was talking about, that's something that we're continuing and begin modeling, and a lot of this is model building so that we can then share it with other places that might want to do it. And the interdisciplinary research teams, that's something that's going to be an emphasis for this coming year. How do we do that? What kind of support is needed? Because it is extra work, and it's extra work for the faculty to do this, but it's also very rewarding and it's incredibly valuable for the students. And again, in ways that you can't see coming at the front end. The student that I was telling you about this now, that student who's doing the public health, I had no idea that she had any interest in public health. I was not doing it to change her trajectory or anything like that. It's just through doing this, it's, the light went on for her, and in the ways that you can't see coming. We think that's what's really valuable about this. So that's sort of an overview, if you will, of the Public Policy Center and some of the I-Revise things and some of the things that we're trying to do. For those of you who are interested, all of our, or a lot of our events, like what I was mentioning last night, are available online. And so this is the kind of thing that if you have any interest, I'm not exactly sure how best to do that, but I'm going to look to Dory and to see if there's some way that we can allow people to just give their email addresses, or to Lindsay, and be happy to then put you on our mailing list so that you can get the links to our different events, or come out to them if you want to come out in person, of course. And something that, hopefully you see the value of what we're talking about into the university and to the community. And really appreciate the opportunity to just talk this through. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to take them. So thank you very much.
So Pete, where are you still in the little bungalowish building? And did I hear something about that's going to be demolished, and where are you going, and physically where is the Public Policy Center?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. So physically, the Public Policy Center is in two different buildings. We have the second floor of the South Quad building, and so if you know, right across from the field house and right next to Slater Hall, one of the two tall dorms. You've probably driven by that thousands of times. It's just sort of a little L-shaped red brick building that you may have missed. So we're in the second floor there, and we also have the sixth floor of the Jefferson building downtown. That's where our Social Science Research Center is. And so in June, we're going to be moving to the old Pediatric Associates building over by Mercy Hospital and be able to move both parts of the center together. And so we're hoping to by being in that location, it'll also be easier for students and some of the social science faculty who are more on the east side of the river to be able to cover and spend time physically with us there.
So did the university buy that property?
Yeah, so with the university about probably 3 years ago now, they bought the practice, the pediatrics practice and the building. They bought it for the practice though. And then shortly after they bought it, moved the practice out to the new building on North Dodge, North Dodge ID. And so that's where the pediatric practice is. And so they had the building, and I've been talking to them for a long time about new space, and so it just happened that those corresponded. And now there's a large 10-year campus plan that was released recently that still seems to be a change. And the future of South Quad itself as a building, whether it's going to come down now, whether it's going to use as swing space for some of the other building that's going to be going on. The field house is supposedly going to be coming down and other things. I don't know for sure exactly what it is. But it is worked out. I think it'll work out very well for us. In this little smaller space, it's not you never get everything that you want when you're in the middle of the move, but really appreciate that they were considering us in this, and it's been really good to work with and try to make the space as viable for us and what we want to do. Any other questions? Or any other thoughts?
We had an employee here until this past graduation who was in criminology. Do you remember exactly what? Cecilia?
Yeah. Like she did research on juvenile incarceration.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if, as part of her research work, if it wasn't through some of the public policy stuff.
Yeah, it's very common.
Sounds familiar-ish.
Sure. very possible that it was. I mean, the faculty there are very small. I mean, they don't have near enough faculty, quite honestly, for the number of majors. And so that's one of the reasons that we've sort of taken them in, if you will, trying to support the faculty that they're really trying to do a good job. Mark Burke heads our program. Karen Heibert's been involved in the center for a long time. And so they're really doing, it might have been a part of one of their research teams, but I don't know for sure. Karen was doing some really interesting work last year as a part of one of our research teams in Waterloo, and a very applied research, and I know she had a fantastic team of undergraduate students.
Yeah.
And it's possible it was part of that one.
Historically, how did the Public Policy Center get started?
So historically, great question. So that gets back to Dave Corkenbrock. And so Dave was an urban regional planning faculty member at the time. He was very policy interested. His particular area of expertise was in transportation policy. She's probably trying to solve the door. She can tell the story better than I. But he was a part of a previous center, as I understand it, out of Oakdale, that didn't quite work out in whatever way that some wanted. Went to the vice president for research at the time, and basically asked for a little bit of support and a little bit of space to be able to get the center going. And obviously it's been, his vision was very important for our ability to do what we're doing now. I mean, we're standing on his shoulders without question. And I felt very fortunate. So when I did my undergrad in dental school here and graduated way back in 1986, spent 2 years in the Indian Health Service on the Navajo Reservation, and then went up to UCLA and Rand and did a research fellowship. That I was technically a faculty member at the university when I did that, but there was no guarantee of a job afterwards. And that was where I got my training. It's called Health Services Research, studying the healthcare delivery system. Most of my work is outside of dentistry, and again, I think there's some inherent value of having people from outside, but not running from. I still do a lot of oral health related research and saw patients for almost 35 years until last year. But that kind of combination, and I had heard about Dave when I was finished with my program and what he was trying to get going. It was maybe in its second year at that point. And he talked to the dean of the dental school at that time, Jim McLaren, and they created this joint appointment. And I was stupid enough to think that I could come out of a graduate program and start a health policy research program. I was thinking naivete has its advantages, and was able to make that work. And there were really only 2 or 3 faculty members at the center at the time. And then 15 years ago, when Dave was towards the end of his career, I was asked fortunate enough to take over from him. And then we've grown a number of these other components of the mission, in ways that I'm sure he would have, I'd like to think, he would value and appreciate.
And I was Dave's dental hygienist.
And Jamie, our here was Dave's dental hygienist. No HIPAA violation there, so. And Jamie and I have been colleagues through the dental school since probably when I came back. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. And if you do have any questions about the Public Policy Center or anything, any way that you either want to be involved or just want to talk about what's going on or have suggestions, always open to that. I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yep.